Well, welcome to our inaugural broadcast of the High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. And I'm sitting here today with Sal Sama. I am Ryan Priest, and we have our CEO, Harold Cooper, with us this morning. And as we get into this, we're going to talk about our recent merger, what the new company looks like, how the breakout. This is our first initial podcast with the name. We're going to get into the name, and that is an homage to your strategy and belief as life and business. So, Sal, you want to kick us off and get us started with Harold here?
Yeah, Harold. When we first moved into this office where we're at now in Seymour, Indiana, and we would take the tour, and we would bring visitors through and show them the office, and in your office today, and then now today still is two pictures. They're Civil War pictures. And it's a very specific battle of the Civil War. And so we've named this podcast The High Ground. And if you could just tell us a little bit about the history of Fredericksburg and the Civil War.
Sure, I'd be glad to. And first, to back up just a little bit, over the years, I have never read management books. I have always believed in my leadership style, whatever style that would be, tends to shy around military history. I think you can learn a lot about battle and how to apply battle strategy to company strategy. So Fredericksburg is a unique battle in the Civil War. It was in December of 1862, and there was two capitals at that time. Washington, D.C. was the capital to the north, and about 110 miles south of there was Richmond, Virginia. In the middle of those two capitals is Fredericksburg. And so it became a very key point in this war as far as a place that, as you wanted to capture the flags, for example, the opposing force's capital, Fredericksburg became a place where both military forces lined up. Not unlike other battles in the Civil War, this was heavily outnumbered. The Confederates were heavily outnumbered, about 120,000 Union forces, about 80,000 Confederates. And so it already sounds like it's going to go well for the Union forces. The problem in all that was Lee and his army got there first, and they occupied the heights that just outside of Fredericksburg, up on the hills. It's called Mars Hill, it's called Mars Hill. There's about a half-mile open field that's on a rise. Near the top of that field was a rock wall. Above that, Lee had placed his cavalry. And so as it was General Burnside, actually a general from Indiana, as he was instructed by Lincoln, take that army. You need to defeat the Confederates. Burnside had a big task ahead of him, to have his forces go up a hill in open ground, and again, the Confederates behind a rock wall. It did not go well. Even with a larger force, the Union forces were just decimated in that battle. And it's mindful of me, and the reason I put those pictures in my office is it depicts both sides. Roughly, the Union forces got within 25 feet of that wall on one of the days of engagement, but they never took out the Confederates. And it's just mindful to me in business that when you can occupy the high ground, when you can get there first and be the best, it's hard to knock you off that hill. And that has become somewhat of a notion or a strategy for us, that if we can do it first best, we're in a much greater, stronger position to occupy.
Yeah, and that feeds right in, Ryan, with as we're doing our first podcast and the forming of Premier Ag with the recent merger, and I think almost everything we're trying to do with storage, putting storage closer to growers, and the investments we've made, and with the hog business expansion, and trying to be the best in the first in the markets that we serve.
Yeah, we expanded our footprint in southern Indiana, and it's interesting that when you talk about logistical and advantageous positions, we do have the Ohio River, which is an important thoroughfare for our input of goods, and where do we source our commodities from, and how do we get them here in the most efficient manner. So having a border basically with the Ohio River has been a very strategic play that's going to work well for us forever into the future, and the assets that we look to build there. Not only bringing those products, because we do look globally. We're a very locally focused company with a global outlook, but as we bring those global products to us, we can consolidate them at the river and still have an advantage to get them to the assets that we're building right here in our own home communities where our members live and work, farm, and so we've, with the strategy that we've put together, the recent merger, which was effective on September 1 with White River Co-op and Premier. I think we've set ourselves up well for our takeover of of our territory and expanding and growing our business. So from a logistical standpoint, we do have an advantage, and we do source locally, which has been important for all of our members to deal with. And as you said, we have an advantage from the diversity that we have. We have the swine link livestock piece to the agronomy, fuel, LP, and then retail C-store businesses. So, and we matched up well divisionally. Size was a little different whenever we brought this merger together, but divisionally we matched up well, and so it's been a nice fit. We have a geographical boundary. It was sort of a mountain. There's some high ground between us, but that's actually boded well for a lack of overlap. We matched up well, but we didn't beat each other up along that border. So that worked well for logistics and also for the employees that we managed to keep on staff. So, as we go ahead, Sal, you have interest in everything that we do, obviously, but a specific interest in the agronomy business. Why don't you give us a little background of our agronomy size, scale, what we do, and kind of what you do as well?
Sure. Well, I work with the sales and the precision ag teams, and one of the things, I guess, Premier Ag, if that's a term, is one of the things that at that point it was Jackson Jennings they had done was try to separate sales and operations. And when they did that, and now even today, we try to we separate functional division of labor, where the operations team can focus on delivering the customer experience and delivering the solutions, getting things done. And then the account managers or the sales department, they're supposed to provide the solutions, not just they may not deliver the products or be involved in that, but they're supposed to deliver the unique solutions to every grower that we work with. And to follow up with that high ground is just trying to make sure that we're doing things. Almost everything you can do agronomically correct is the best thing economically and environmentally, and having the account managers equipped to bring those solutions to the growers. And then there's the tracks department, where the data piece and bringing all the data together, importing data. Right now, at this point in the fall of 2021, input costs are going to be pretty stiff next year. We want to look at removal rates and not over apply. Certainly not under apply fertilizer, but not over apply. And want to make sure we get the right amount of product and the right source at the right time. And the tracks department does that as the core of what that precision ag department does for Premier Ag. And then also there's the expanding and exploring some new market opportunities for our growers with carbon credits, sustainability. And that is also housed in our tracks department. And last year was the first year, actually this past summer, that was the first time I've ever seen a carbon credit payment go out. And Premier Ag was the leader, certainly in Indiana, and one of the highest participants of just taking advantage of an opportunity for a grower to get credit, no pun intended, but to get credit for something that they have done to sequester carbon in the soil.
So give us an idea of how many opportunities did you have? I mean, you say you led the way in the state of Indiana. Is that 1,000 people? Is it 100
Well,
people? Or and what percentage were you?
So in Indiana, there was 31, I think.
Okay.
That was through the True Terra, the True Carbon program that came out, and I think there was 31 growers in Indiana that qualified, and it was fairly. They had to have gone back in their history and find out which farming practices they used, and if it was the right farming practices to match up with what they were, the intent of the program. Premier Ag had 22 growers that qualified for that program. Now, we only did that because we had done some work before with getting growers into a sustainable plan. And right now we're getting ready for 2022, and we're already trying to make sure that we have enough staff and enough depth in that department to deliver the offers to the growers.
Yeah, and as we target this podcast out to not only the people who buy from us and use from us, but also our neighbors and our community members and those who aren't of the 2% that are farmers or the 7% who work in ag business, this sustainability piece is a catchphrase, word, key topic that everybody, it seems like in our communities, is concerned about as they see us going by and monitoring, wondering what we do, how we do things, what is in that sprayer, what are we doing, and this sustainability piece and being the leader in Indiana on the carbon credits, that's just a piece of it that we welcome our communities to ask questions to us, and I think that leads us out there. Harold probably falls into that strategy of being out in front of others, where you want to keep us, where you want us to be. We know that being in front, being first place is hard to get to, but it's even harder to stay there. So there's going to be things that continue to come down the pike that we want to jump on early.
Yeah, and I think that a good way to phrase it is tracks, variable rate applications, grid sampling. That's how we farm. Sustain or our sustain program is how we show we farm. And so for growers to be able to show external stakeholders, sustainable farming doesn't mean organic. That's not what it means. It means that we're not over applying fertilizer. We're using cover crops. We're doing no-till in appropriate situations. And it's profitable for the grower, and it saves soil and resources.
Well, I don't want to spring any questions that haven't been that are new or cutting edge, but I guess I would focus back to you, Harold. You're coming off the merger, and those things don't go together necessarily very quickly. We've had time to think about them. We've had boards of directors that took time to look through all of the numbers and consider all of the advantages of it. How do you look at this merger as being beneficial to our members, and maybe address how, well, you're just bigger and that's not necessarily better? If you want to go ahead and just expound on your thoughts to that and how you would answer that.
And I think it's a great question. I did like the process that I think our farmer owners addressed that. And that's an important part of this answer is I report to a farmer board. We are owned by 3,000 farmers in southern Indiana. And so when you consider the things that we have to represent to our farmer owners and say we think this is a good idea, there's conflicting interest. A lot of that is a desire to keep my capabilities local. I like the fact that it's locally owned, locally controlled. And so as you get larger, that starts moving away from that notion. And so how do we represent that it's a good idea to be larger? You mentioned it earlier, but as I think it's always incumbent upon a farmer-owned organization. I think something that Premier has as a value is we want to offer a farmer-owned choice in every market, every geography. I sincerely think it makes a difference when there is something that is owned by farmers that helps influence the marketplace and make sure the farmer is forefront in the thinking, not just of our own interest, but of our competitors as well. The other thing I really like that this does is it allows us the capability, again, with the high ground notion, to be able to compete with any other entity that would be in this marketplace. We are not of the size or scale as Premier in southern Indiana to compete internationally with Cargill or worldwide with Nutrien. But with this merger, we are of the size and scale to be able to make the investment and be relevant with any other possible choice that would exist in this marketplace. And so it's always a question for a co-op: are you too large or too small? They're both very relevant questions. And I think it's easy to answer the too small question if you're not able to make an investment that is the best possible choice for a producer to be able to do to get efficiency, convenience, quality, reliability, and competitiveness. You're too small. And the challenge of being too large is, do you lose track of that local interest? And in our case, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but in our case, we are aligned with the Ohio River. We share an interest across this entire southern Indiana boundary of an interest of how the Ohio River influences agriculture. We're in livestock. And there's only 3 co-ops in Indiana that were even directly invested still in livestock, and we're 2 of the 3. And then in my mind, I think this is just as important, but I think things are different in southern Indiana. I used to travel the Midwest, and I used to feel more comfortable and aligned with just the way people acted in southern Illinois than I did northern Indiana. That doesn't make anything right or wrong, but there's a great commonality of interest in our 2 companies pre-merger that allowed us to go very well post. And so in all this, then, this allows us again to maintain that notion of, can we occupy the high ground? I think this merger gives us the capacity and the capability to continue that notion. Otherwise, we would have struggled.
I appreciate that, and I think as we continue to move ahead with this new merged company and find our place and where all of these advantages that we gained by putting this together, it's going to continue to benefit our members. I'm excited to go to our members and talk about the things that we're doing now, the capabilities that we have, the things that we're going to be able to invest in these local communities that people will benefit everyone as they see that, and it's encouragement to our employees. Sal, I know that you feel very strongly about the young people coming into our company and the strong foundation that they have. That as we continue through our careers and we build in those successions coming in behind everyone here, they really have a solid long-term outlook with where we are.
Yeah, it's just what a fun time to be coming into the industry and coming into Premier Ag. We don't want to just hire people. We want to gather people as far as employees, and to make sure that they've got the right culture, to make sure that they have the long-term vision. Because this cooperative, I mean, it'll be here after we're all gone, and to make sure that we've got the next generation that's ready to do something different, and know that they can come here and work hard and build a career. And it's just an exciting time with the technology changes, just what we have seen in our careers. But what will the next 15 to 20 years look like?
Oh, agreed. And to move away from ag just for a moment, we want to talk about the fuel. There was a recent acquisition by Premier for liquid fuels, and with the intent to expand in other areas as well. But we've kind of concentrated on southern Indiana, but that investment is actually in Kentucky. And we also have a very important piece of our operation that's in Ohio now. So this is a multi-state company. We have several counties with the agronomy interest in Indiana, but we're also all the way to the northern border of the Tennessee state line, and then several counties in Ohio that we have interest in as well. So, but still culturally, both of those areas still territorially fit into what he was addressing earlier, what Harold was addressing earlier with the culture and the way people act, behave, and believe. And so those continued expansions are not changing us culturally. We're not changing anything out of our model. Those are more strategic add-ons, and we're glad to have them. We'll continue to look for those opportunities. But through our fuel, through the cooperative business model that we're also passionate about and have been involved in for such a long time, our fuel business is also mainly sourced from another cooperative, and a strong regional cooperative with a refiner in Indiana. and Country Mark. And then even on a larger scale, we source our CPP products and our seed products and have supply agreements with Land O'Lakes and the CHSs and Grow Marks of all large cooperatives. And so I would like to get into that one of these days in a separate episode about cooperatives, and people have a little bit of an idea that maybe I can't buy from you because you're a co-op and I'm not a member. And I think people would be surprised. I think it would make a great, interesting concept to talk about who are co-ops in the world that we may not think about. The Sunkists and the Ocean Sprays and the RTC Communications, and talk about, you're dealing with co-ops all the time. That's a strong model. And when you think large co-ops, and are you too large? There's some large co-ops out there that have been very beneficial to customers and members for years, and we're proud to be a part of that business model. So, as we go ahead, that's a little glimpse of what Premier is, a little glimpse of why we did what we did as far as our latest merger, our belief strategies, and the cores that we set on. And as we talk about core values, we hope that we convey those core values. These are voted on by our board of directors, and we hope that we convey those in everything we do. Sal, when you go to the farm, we want to make sure that all of those are conveyed through this podcast. Anybody who interacts with us, we want to make sure that they are, and we want to drive home that based on those core values and the cooperative business model, that's our go-to-business strategy, and that anybody, whether they buy from us or not, should see that reflected through all of our employees, and we're glad for that. I do want to bounce back quickly with a little back on you, Sal. I just want to say that the taping today is the 246th birthday of the Marine Corps, and you are a Marine. So
I got several happy birthdays today.
Absolutely. So thank you for your service.
There's a lot of Marine Corps balls going on all around the world right now. So
absolutely,
it's a good time.
Yeah. So happy birthday and thank you for your service. So, anything to add for our premier broadcast?
No, I just thought it was nice to come out with a story about how we came up with the name of the High Ground and how that ties into our go-to-market strategy. And just looking forward to this being a new way to communicate with our growers and also to folks that may not know a lot about agriculture.
For sure. A good way to advocate, and look forward to doing many more of these. Harold, thank you for your time and thank you for your insight.
Thank you, Bill.